Everything you need to know about the Khoi and San people of southern Africa. When Europeans first arrived at the shores of South Africa, they were met by the Aboriginal people, known as the Khoi and San. The Khoi were herders and the San were generally hunter-gatherers. The Khoi and San did not identify as one group, instead they identified with various clan names. Many clans would often merge into a larger tribe, consisting of anywhere from a few hundred to a few thousand members. Local clans could move around the land and use water, fruit and vegetables as they saw fit, provided that it was within the vicinity of the tribe. Prior to European colonization, population density was very low. As a result, there were no clear boundaries. Various clans or tribes controlled certain parts of the land and its resources. However, land could not become the property of individual persons. In contrast, all stock was individually owned and a wealthy stock owner was held in higher regard, and also had a higher status within the community. The clan was based on patrilineal lineage and was also a means of social stratification. The eldest son would inherit the leadership position within the community. Hence, detailed genealogies of the origins of clan names and the relationship between them were kept orally. Individuals were given both patrilineal clan names and great names. These were names inherited by a group of brothers from their mother, or of sisters from their father. Intertribal or interclan marriages were the norm, as men from one clan had to take wives from another. As a result, marriage served as a means to unify different tribes. The groom had to spend the first few months of the marriage at the village of his in-laws, usually until the birth of the couple's first child. Afterwards the couple would return to the husband's family or village. A dowry was enforced. This usually involved cattle being transferred to the parents of the bride. As can be expected, males and females had different responsibilities and parents trained their children in the basic skills of herding, farming, house building, etc. The construction of houses was the task of both men and women. Men would cut the reeds, tie them together with leather thongs to form a frame. Women collected the reeds and manufactured the mats for the covering of the house. With the introduction of modern houses, women have largely taken over the constructing of traditional homes. Men now are responsible for the construction of modern brick houses. Many contemporary households in the reserves have both modern and traditional structures. Traditional mat houses are reserved for cooking, which are usually the domain of women. A typical San community usually consisted of no more than 50 people. Their houses were simple and easy to erect and dismantle. These huts had to be easy to carry because they were semi-nomadic and were constantly moving. The houses were constructed out of twigs and dried grass. Most of their activities took place outside, and the house was used to sleep in. Unlike the San, the Khoi constructed their houses out of reeds weaved into mats and thin poles. They attached these mats to the poles and covered the frame, giving it a dome-like shape. They called these houses a maiki house or mat house. These houses provided very practical accommodation, especially in warm weather. During warm days they offered a cool, relatively bright shelter, with the crevices between the reeds allowing air to circulate. During the rainy season, the reeds would swell as they absorbed water and therefore offered good protection against leaks. The inside of the house could be lined with animal skins in order to provide extra insulation. These structures also had the advantage that it could be dismantled and re-erected every few months, as the seasons changed and grazing areas became depleted. Pots and buckets were made of wood, with small handles to make them easier to tie to animals' backs. The Khoi made pottery, some of which had distinctive pointed bases and handles, which could be tied to their oxen when moving, or to hut poles. They made spears with fire-hardened tips, but generally used iron tips, which they obtained from neighboring Bantu-speaking people or, more recently, from European ships and settlers. The Khoi manufactured skins into clothing, bags and blankets. Though the Khoi only slaughtered cattle for ritualistic purposes, the milk of cattle and ewes was essential to the Khoi diet. Because the fat of the fat-tailed sheep were highly prized, they were slaughtered more regularly. The Khoi also preserved their meat by smoking it. Oxen were used as a means of transportation and to carry heavy loads. The San generally collected wild plants and usually hunted game. like zebra, kudu and giraffe for their meat. The Khoi and San also used ostrich eggshells to store water and bury it deep underground to keep it cool. Earrings, necklaces and beads were also manufactured from the ostrich shells. European colonization brought with it missionaries, whom brought Christianity to the Khoi and San. However, pre-Christian beliefs include worshipping the moon, and beings central to their belief were Tsu-e-gub, a deity, and Hitsi-e-bib, a folk hero. They also believed in ghosts and witches, but not in ancestors. Gornab was a being believed to cause sickness and death. Ceremonies included rituals that celebrated birth, puberty, adulthood, marriage and death. Transition from one state of being to another is central to their belief system. The concept of no was important in rituals. It represents a state of vulnerability and danger. All of these involved a period of isolation associated with increased no. Water and other substances would be avoided during these periods of isolation. Fire and the butchu plant were associated with protection. To a certain extent, the Khoi and San used healing rituals, like trance dancing. However, they had expert knowledge of the properties of various plants. Though all adults had a basic understanding of plants, certain individuals were considered to have a higher level of understanding and expertise, and were well respected. Historical evidence shows the presence of the San in Botswana's Sodila Hills. Stone tools and rock art date back some 70,000 years. The ancestors of the San are considered to have migrated from Botswana southwards. The Khoi were herders who lived in southwestern Africa for at least 2,000 years and spread across the rest of the region. As the Bantu migration reached southern Africa, many Khoi became pastoralists. The K2 culture that is believed to have given rise to the Mapungubwe kingdom is believed to be derived ancestrally from the Khoi culture. Recent genetic evidence shows that the skeletons found at Mapungubwe Hill are believed to be that of a king and a queen and of Khoisan descent. Culturally, the people who lived at Mapungubwe Hill were socially stratified based on wealth and social influence. This was also evident in Khoi culture. In Khoi culture, members of other clans and especially those who were less wealthy became servants but lived in the village. A system developed whereby individual San were adopted as servants and they were referred to as Songtwa. In Khoi culture, people who were not livestock owners were considered inferior and they despised those who stole their cattle. Each village had an authority figure, usually passed down to the eldest son. They were responsible for making decisions, acting as judges and mediators. During colonization, Europeans used many leaders by formally recognizing them as captains or rulers, in order to extend their control into Khoi villages. During this time the relations between the San and Khoi became strained. The Khoi often accused the San of stealing their livestock, which sometimes resulted in warfare between the two groups. Furthermore, as land became scarce, a conflict occurred between Dutch and Khoi farmers. Often conflict occurred between the various Khoi tribes. The Khoi offered major resistance. Various tribes would unite against the Europeans, most notably during the Khoi War of Independence, which occurred from 1799 to 1803. The Khoi were also able to garner the support of many different tribal and ethnic groups. They even joined forces with the Bantu Khoisan. Their attempt proved unsuccessful as the Europeans made use of rifles. As a result, many retreated to remote and arid regions. Others died from smallpox and many ended up working on the farms of the European farmers. Some Europeans adopted a more pastoral way of life and intermarried with the local Khoi women. These unions gave rise to a new mixed race group which were called Basters or Bastards. These mixed people spoke Dutch, later Afrikaans, and became knowledgeable in Christian teachings. Today many Khoi and San people have assimilated into Southern African society. During apartheid they were erroneously classified as colored, because of their lighter skin and being generally Afrikaans-speaking. Alcohol abuse and fetal alcohol syndrome has plagued the community, particularly those living and working on farms. This is largely due to the apartheid practice of paying farm workers in wine, known as the DOP system. Irrespective, people who self-identify as Khoi or San can be found in all sectors from government to commerce. There has in recent years been a movement to reclaim their identity. I hope you have enjoyed this video and learning something new about this interesting group of people. Thanks for watching.